House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 4, The Red Dragon and the Gold. Let's talk about it. We continue with my favorite storyline of the entire show so far, the Harrenhal storyline of Daemon Targaryen. His dreams continue, he's still haunted by his past, and once again, young Rhaenyra comes back to remind him of his wrongs. It's of course a direct parallel to Daemon handing her the necklace in Season 1, which once again symbolizes his grooming of her, as well as his own ambition in regards to the Iron Throne. The camera's focus on the crown falling to the ground is a nice way of connecting it to Viserys' throne room sequence from Season 1, Episode 8. Daemon is the one who picks it up for him, which by the way was not in the script for that episode at all. It accidentally fell down, and I like that it's now used to draw a parallel because of how powerful that little moment really was. Matt Smith is a fantastic actor. When Rhaenyra starts to tease him about his brother, the most sensitive of all topics for Daemon, he flips and kills her right in front of the Iron Throne, the very thing that he desires the most. It's like he's running away from the past, but now that he's in Harrenhal, he simply can't escape it. Later on, Daemon sees Aemond and himself is Aemond, which is obviously a hint for the future. They're continuing to set up Aemond versus Daemon very early on. They're both similar in a lot of ways, which is why I like the way this is written. Both suffer from the previous neglect of their family and are now struggling to find their purpose in this world. It's what drives them to behave irrational and cruel, and also what makes them human. When Daemon seemingly comes back to his senses, he's greeted by Alice Rivers, who finally gets her proper introduction. I really enjoy Gail Rankin's performance and like that she gets to openly mock Daemon. She's not afraid of him. It's not over the top, and yet there's still a level of ambiguity that makes for great discourse. Is Alice using the magic of the weirwood tree? Is she a warg and therefore using the animals to keep an eye out on everything that happens inside the castle walls? Then again, does it even matter at all? The thing that makes this so great is precisely that it's all left in the dark. So far, it's something that we can interpret in many ways. The focus is on Daemon's inner struggle, rather than the magical component. That's what makes it very relatable to us as viewers, despite of how cruel Daemon's acts were. Sometimes it's the feeling of guilt that drives us and dictates our behavior. In A Song of Ice and Fire, Jorah Mormont tells Daenerys that there are ghosts everywhere. We carry them with us wherever we go. House of the Dragon's depiction of the ghost of Harrenhal works so beautifully because it feels very, very personal. It's a very intimate and complex portrayal of the human heart in conflict with itself. It clings to the things that hurt our characters the most. This is by far the best thing the show has done so far in my opinion. Not because it's spooky, because fan favorite actors like Millie Alcock return, but because it's real, and that is the very thing that makes A Song of Ice and Fire so great. Rarely before has anything ever felt so much like George R.R. Martin. I can't wait to see more of it, and I can't wait to see what it does to other characters who will arrive in Harrenhal. This deep dive into our characters' minds does more for me than 1,000 dragons, knights in shining armor, and their pointless battles ever could. It's copper, bright, and shiny. Pretty to look at, but not worth all that much at the end of the day. Before we talk about the battle at Rook's Rest, here are a few other things that I'd like to talk about. The sack of Duskendale, like the Battle of the Burning Mill, didn't have to be shown given what followed in this episode regardless. The castle in the background does indeed look like the Duskendale we know from artworks, which is neat. The show should stop trying to draw a parallel between Criston Cole and Jaime Lannister, however. I rolled my eyes when I heard Darkland call Criston Cole Kingmaker. Putting the crown on Aegon's head is not what made Cole a kingmaker. They stripped the character of his agency, which is why this just feels so out of place now. Pretending like that change didn't occur is as weird as trying to act like Cole is half the character Jaime Lannister was. So far, he has no redeeming qualities in the show, and therefore this just doesn't make sense in my opinion. Not until the character develops. I like that House of the Dragon's characters actually confront each other when the things they do are stupid. That's very much the case for Jace with Rhaenyra. Her nonsensical trip to King's Landing was a choice, but at least it's something that comes up. It's intentionally nonsensical, which doesn't make it good writing, but at least there are consequences to it. Corlys is slowly setting up Alan to take over as heir to Driftmark. He neglects Rhaenys' ideas every time, and Alan is entering the story more and more now. Abubakar Salim is a great actor, and I can't wait to see him become the Oakenfist. It seems like Alicent is slowly starting to acknowledge that Viserys' wishes do not matter, and Rhaenyra might also finally gain more agency. As I said last week, I think this season ends with a big breakup between both characters. Rhaenys' death might finally harden Rhaenyra's stance. It's another big loss for her cause and her personally, and one that might be used to develop her character. I like the dynamic between Aegon and Aemond during the small council meeting, up until Aegon struggles to speak High Valyrian. I know it's supposed to be funny. To be fair, it is kind of funny. But during this time period, everyone that sits there should be able to talk High Valyrian. I complained about that enough during my season 1 reviews though, so that's nothing new. We could also just stop it with the sex jokes now. It's slowly starting to remind me of Varys and Tyrion in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, and I can definitely do without that. On to battle. Well, almost. Alicent's conversation with Aegon is what ultimately drives him to war. Nothing is needed of you, says Alicent, and Aegon finally has enough. This seemed to be the final nail in the coffin for him. The ultimate proof that he will never be enough. He starts drinking and decides to join the battle at Rook's Rest, and I really like that aspect of it, to be honest. Most of these characters are very green. No pun intended. They haven't experienced the cruel nature of war yet. Aegon has a constant need to prove himself, and I think this was very well done. As was the battle itself from a technical standpoint. It's crazy how television has developed over the years. This is the sort of stuff you would have only been able to see at the theater a couple of years ago. Sunfire, Meleys, and Vega looked fantastic, and the battle was incredibly well shot. It wasn't too quick, and therefore not too hard to follow. The dragons fighting each other looked great. It was very chaotic. It immediately showed the chaos and horror that a war of dragons will bring, which is a very important aspect of the dance. At first it seems that the army of the Greens will have a field day. Then Meleys arrives and changes the dynamic entirely. The Rosby, Stokeworth and Darkland host immediately retreats. Then Sunfire arrives and it all seems to go well again. It's a constant back and forth, which makes it very entertaining. But let us also talk about the elephant in the room. The big changes to Fire and Blood. As many of you will know, I'm not against changes at all. I'm not a book purist and even encourage changes from Fire and Blood specifically because I don't think it's as good as many people make it out to be. A lot of characters are barely characters, and an adaptation not only can but needs to add things to make this story even remotely compelling. This change, however, I'm still not 100% sure about, even after watching the episode 3 times already. Aemond attempting to kill Aegon is bold. House of the Dragon's Aemond was never as loyal as he seems to be in Fire and Blood, but it's still a lot to make him go after his brother in cold blood. As I've mentioned in my last review, Aegon mocking Aemond in the brothel is much deeper than just siblings making fun of each other. He robs Aemond of his escape place. This was Aemond's last place of security. In a messed up kind of sense, this was his escape place, the very place to which he was unwillingly dragged to by his brother. As we've seen in the previous episode, Aemond allows himself to be insecure when he's in that brothel. It's where his feelings are heard and where he can vent. The prostitutes seemed to be able to get to him too. She emphasized on the importance of the small folk and how a prince's anger might lead to the suffering of them. It's like she was the only person in the world who was able to temporarily tame the rage and anger that Aemond carries inside of him ever since he was a child. Aegon stole that place of security from him when he opened that curtain, and Aemond immediately becomes the small child that was ridiculed again. In a way, a part of Aemond died right there. His carelessness and coldness when he walks out of the brothel is scary and signalizes a shift in Aemond's arc. I don't think it's completely illogical for the Aemond the show depicted, but I might have preferred something that's more subtle. Something like Aemond visiting his injured brother in King's Landing after the battle at Rook's Rest. He might find the catspaw dagger right next to him on a table and contemplate killing him to both rid his brother of his suffering and to become king. Larys could have walked in and Aemond then ultimately abandons this idea. They could have played it ambiguously, which goes in line with Larys' characterization too. He could have said something along the lines of a worthy dagger for the protector of the realm, which could have set up Aemond's Prince Regent arc, in combination with him wearing the Conqueror's crown. You get the idea, something that is not as extreme. I really have to see where this goes now, because Aegon saw his brother going for him. There have to be consequences, unless Aemond arrives in King's Landing first and spins the narrative. He has to fly away when Aegon wakes up, and maybe that's where the Harrenhal storyline comes in, and we get an insight to his psyche and why he did what he did. If that is the case, and we get a storyline that is even just half as good as Daemon's is right now, I'm okay with this change. For now, let's see where it goes. We will talk about Rhaenys Targaryen this Thursday. The queen who never was deserves her own video, for better or worse. I give House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 4 a 7 out of 10. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know how you felt about the episode down in the comment section below. Feel free to subscribe so you don't miss my House of the Dragon reviews, streams, and even cast interviews that we'll do for Season 2. See you later.